Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. We are here today with Ari Novikov, who is the Senior Pre-Sales Engineer for North America at Macrium. That was a mouthful.
It was a mouthful. It is a mouthful.
Yeah, so how is your day so far today, Ari?
Oh, you know what? The day's going great, Scott. How about you?
Well, it's just beginning for me. I've been up, well, I don't know, maybe not. I've been up since about 6:30, so I've been going strong for a little while, but I'm excited to tackle the rest of the day and most importantly to hear all about Macrium and what you guys want to talk about today.
Well, thank you. Today, we're going to talk about a brand new product that we've released called SiteDeploy. And what we've done is we've basically said, hey, you know what? There used to be this great product out here many, many years ago that people used to deploy gold images to a whole bunch of machines simultaneously. And that product kind of went the way of the dodo, and there hasn't really been anything to replace it with any sort of great functionality.
So you're talking about the grassroots of Macrium, kind of like the imaging portion of it.
No, we're talking about what would have been a competitive product if it was still around, but it's
Okay,
it's kind of gone the way of the dodo. And people who've been in the industry for a while will know which product I'm referencing. But
I got you.
it's a lot like a spectral product. We'll just call it that.
All right, perfect.
So what we've done is we've basically addressed the need in the market. We've said, hey, we recognize that there isn't really anything out there that's A, reasonably priced, B, does what it needs to do, and C, does it really well. So what we
Sure.
did was we sat down and kind of took a look and said, hey, we've got this product out here called Deployment Kit, which is a great product. It lets people take a gold image and push that gold image out onto other computers, but it was really manual. But we also had this other product that you and I have demoed many times already called Site Manager.
Okay.
And Site Manager has been around for almost 9 years. It's had a great time to mature and grow in feature and reputation. And people who use it really like it. And it's a great backup and restore product. But that's where it stopped, was at backup and restore. So we had this centrally managed console to do backup and restore and a manual product to do deployment. So what we wound up doing was we wound up marrying deployment kit into Site Manager and created something called SiteDeploy.
Okay.
So if you go to our website at macrium.com, you will actually be able to navigate through under products, technicians, you will see SiteDeploy, and SiteDeploy will give you a very quick what it's about and some real quick features. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you SiteDeploy today, if that's okay.
Perfect. Absolutely.
All right. So we'll jump into it. I mean, first off, who's SiteDeploy for, right? Because we are talking about the W5 of SiteDeploy. So who is it for? SiteDeploy, really, it's for technicians, people who are responsible for deploying images to new hardware, or in a support role, deploying images to existing systems to put them back into a known state. So, sometimes you'll have a user click on a link or something, and all of a sudden their computer isn't running the way that it should be.
Okay.
You can spend hours supporting that user, or you can simply just push a deployment image back out. Now, yes, there are things like data, and we all try and train our users not to store data on computers, put them into places like OneDrive, or put the data into places that are, typically backed up like on a server. But in a pinch, you could simply push an image back out to this computer and have it back up and running very, very quickly without the need to put boots on the ground to go and do it.
Okay.
So this is really what we're doing, is we're trying to free up technicians' time, which kind of leads to the what does it do? So it's a deployment software package. What we do is we deploy the operating system and your sys-prepped gold image.
Okay.
We provide you with an answer file to make life easier for you, because a lot of people have trouble with the answer file. They have trouble either writing it or creating it or keeping the answer file up to date, or little things like Joining a domain, for example, where you don't want to store administrative credentials in plain text in an XML file, which could be very easily found. So what we're trying to do in these cases is we do this all through variables, and we push those variables out to our answer file. So rather than actually storing all of this information in plain text, all you see are just variable strings.
Okay.
So what does it do? It deploys images. It was made available on April the 3rd, but our official launch date was yesterday, May the 15th.
Okay.
You can get it from, you can get it from your distributor if you're a Macrium partner. If you're not a Macrium partner, come and talk to us. We'll sign you up. We'll get you on there, and then you can check it out and test it and see what it's all about. And why do you need it? Well, because we all need something to make our life a little easier and take less time to do things, because we're all stretched pretty thin on time. So with that, let's go right into SiteDeploy. This looks very familiar to people who are familiar with Site Manager, because Site Manager and SiteDeploy come in the same installer package. They are licensed independently. So if you don't need our backup and restore, and I'd argue that you probably do, but if you don't, that's okay. You don't have to license the backup and restore side. You can just license the deployment side. Conversely, if all you want is our backup and restore and you don't want our deployment side, you can just license backup and restore. Same installer package, 2 different licensing models. So for that perspective, you can just get exactly what you need.
Wonderful.
When we're talking about deployment, we're talking about where we're going to store our images, how we're going to store those images, what we're going to push those images out to. So first thing we're going to start with is gold image stores. Common things that we're going to see in our customer base is we're going to see places that are connected with a sort of a hub spoke VPN setup, where you have a central office and you have lots of little branch offices. They're connected back to the central office through VPN. The last thing we want to do is we want to push deployment image traffic over VPN, because that'll just choke the traffic right up. So what we can do is we can set up a gold image repository or gold image store at each one of the branches. Use a 2-bay NAS drive, or if you have space on a server there for a network share, you can always do that. And then all of the branches will have your gold images stored for those, for those branches, so that when you need to deploy an image, that deployment traffic stays local to the branch instead of going over the VPN. Right? But it's still managed from your central console, so you don't have to set this up in multiple places. You only have one place to look at it. So our options are network drives, NASs, any network location that uses a UNC path with a username and a password. We do support cloud-based repositories as well. This would be your own Amazon storage gateway or your own Azure storage account. So if you want to deploy images to the cloud, you can set up a cloud-based repository, or from the cloud, you can set up a cloud-based repository and do it that way. Again, you get to figure out what the best way works for you. We're not going to tell you, hey, we're holding your images, right? It's just not something that we do. So once you've done that, the next thing you need to do is figure out how many simultaneous deployments you're going to allow from that gold image store. Each gold image store can support up to 60 simultaneous deployment operations.
Wow.
That's a lot. So if you think about, you have a gold image store at each one of your branches, each one of those stores can do 60 simultaneous deployments, up to 60 simultaneous deployments. Of course, you want to gauge it based on your network speed, your availability, when things are running, when you want to do this. And it's okay, because if you don't, if you're pushing out a large number of images, you can set this number lower, and it'll queue those images. It'll queue up to 5,000 deployments. So if you have a large number of deployments that you need to push out, no problem, queue it up and be kinder to your network bandwidth, so that you have bandwidth for other things. Or if you're doing it after hours, well, then that's great too. Once you've got your store set up, the next thing we need to figure out is how we're going to connect to that store. And that's one of 2 ways: through deployment media. So our basic deployment media, the old-fashioned way of doing things, the one that everybody knows, is a USB stick. You know, you create an ISO, you use our tool, Rescue USB Builder, or a tool like Rufus, for example, and you burn that ISO to a USB stick. You plug that USB stick in, and you get the computer to boot from USB. The new intelligent agent talks back to the Site Manager server, and it says, "Hey, how you doing?" Site Manager server says, "Hey, you're an intelligent agent, no problem." And then everything else is magic in the background.
Awesome.
Alternatively, and this has been a huge request from people, is using the pre-executable environment. So using Pixie, pre-boot executable environment, what we can do with Pixie is we can either, if you have an existing Pixie server set up in your environment, you can just simply copy the path, open up a file folder, dump that path into the file folder, go to sources, and there's your WIM files to copy over to your Pixie server. If you don't have an existing Pixie server, not a problem. We include one as well. So you can turn that Pixie server on. It's just a plain old TFTP server. And to make life easy for you, rather than having to go into your DHCP server and edit options 66 and 67 to tell your DHCP server where to look for a TFTP or Pixie server, we have a proxy DHCP, and all the proxy DHCP does is it answers requests for Pixies. So if you know, in the standard boot up, you're gonna, boot up your computer, your network card's gonna say, "Hey, DHCP server, I'm here, I need a network address." DHCP server assigns a network address, and then your network card, which decides it wants to boot into Pixie because you've told it to, says, "Hey, now I need a Pixie server." Then the proxy DHCP answers and it says, "Yeah, I'm right over here, use this one." And then we send over the network boot package, and then you're booted up into your intelligent agent. So once we've done all of that, we can take a gold image, and then we can start to have fun and deploy images. If you're an existing Macrium customer, if you already have gold images in the MRIMG format, the Macrium image file format, the beautiful thing for you is we recognize that we want to make life easy for you. So if you go into your gold image repository and you select deployment images, you will see a folder called import. All you need to do is drag your MRIMG folders into the import folder, wait a few minutes, and then they will show up as gold images, and you can edit the tags and make them usable. If you want to take a brand new gold image, not a problem. What we can do is we can fire up a machine to grab a gold image from it. And I'm going to show you how this whole Pixie thing works, since we're going to be doing this. So computer gets an IP address, talks to the Pixie server sends over the network boot package. Then we'll get those squirrels running in just a second as soon as the computer processes it.
Awesome.
There we go. And then we will boot up into our Macrium Reflect recovery environment splash screen. So this is the new intelligent agent, which, as I said before, automatically connects to our Site Manager SiteDeploy server. See right here. So at this point, if we want to grab a gold image from a machine, then all we need to do is log into our Site Manager SiteDeploy server. Once we're connected, the capture gold image is no longer grayed out. We take the gold image, we tell it the repository we want the gold image to go to, we give it a name, we give it a description, and it automatically detects the Windows version, architecture, boot mode, and sysprep state.
Well, let's give it a name. I was going to tell you to give it a name of ITBOG instead of XYR and NNT.
At this point, we're ready to go. We can just click finish. It'll start to grab the gold image, and that'll run in the background, and we'll go ahead and let that do
so then
thing.
it's pushing the image directly over the network from the image server.
To the image server right now. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're pushing it to the image store.
Oh, so you're actually making the image now. Okay.
I'm grabbing that gold image.
Okay.
Right. Everything that leads up to that is Microsoft sysprep. So
Gotcha.
You're sysprepping your machine, you're getting it ready, you're putting it into audit mode, you're installing your software, you're finished, you're selecting the generalized box, you're selecting the out-of-box experience, and you're selecting shutdown. boom, computer's ready to be imaged. That's where we're at, and then we're taking that image. So now that we're taking that image, once that image is completed, it will show up in here in the console, and then we'll be able to use that image to push out to another machine. In the meantime, let's get a couple of other machines booted up. So we will go ahead and boot up this one here, and we'll go
About how long does it take to push that over your network?
Should take just a few minutes to do.
Okay. Yeah, it's already almost a quarter of the way finished.
About 5 minutes to grab that image.
That's a whole lot faster than reloading OSs one at a time.
It is pretty darn quick, I will say that.
That's really where I got into Macrium back in the day, is just, making an image and having 10 machines that were the same make and model with the drivers matched. Just, it's so much easier to make. I didn't call it a golden image back then, but it's basically the same thing, your master image, if you want to call it. And, then just deploying that among your other machines certainly made it a lot faster.
Oh,
and
sure.
You don't forget things.
That's right. You have that uniformity. The process is documented, so you go through it all. And actually, since we're talking about documentation, so our knowledge base gives you step-by-step instructions on everything, on every section, from doing the installation and updates to setting up your license, to creating your gold image store, to taking your first gold image, to deploying your gold image. We've got it all step by step in our documentation, just to make life easy for you as an administrator. But really at the end of the day, we try and make our software fairly intuitive. So, other than maybe a couple of lookups just for definition's sake, it should be pretty straightforward for most technical people.
Nice.
So this is about halfway finished, which is fine. We've got 2 machines here ready to go. So these 2 machines have just booted up. That's all we've done, is we've booted them. We've told them to boot from Pixie, and they've gone ahead and gone right in to move forward. Right now, we've done nothing other than push the power button.
All right. Okay. And when that golden image, when you finish acquiring the golden image, then we're going to deploy it to those 2 machines simultaneously?
Well, I'm going to actually start a deployment right now because, I'm not that patient waiting for minutes, but, we could sit and talk about the weather, I guess. But
well, what's the weather like? Where you're in? Are you still in Alaska?
No, I'm in Winnipeg, but that's
Winnipeg. Okay, yeah. All right, yeah, because we always talk about the ice road truckers, but they're not close to you, are they? Closer to you than me.
No,
I'm in South Carolina.
Yeah, no, they're not here. Actually, it's oh gosh, yesterday we were in the low 80s. Today we'll be in the low 80s. So we're starting to get into our summer. We'll hit 100-degree weather. Awesome. End of July.
Well, it's 78 currently in South Carolina, but it's also 10 o'clock in the morning, so I'm sure it'll hit the mid 80s. It's swimming pool weather, as I call it. Getting ready to open up the pool.
Yep, for sure. All right, so we've covered off gold image stores. We've covered off deployment media. We've covered off gold images. What we're going to do now is look at deployment targets. So when we boot up those computers, and you'll be able to see that the name of the computers that we're looking at are Recovery 3 and Recovery 4. So you know exactly what you're dealing with when you're looking at your console. You'll see Recovery 3 and Recovery 4 in here. We can select those computers to deploy a gold image to. Oh, look at that. The image is done.
It's there.
Right? So I can take this gold image that we just grabbed, and I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, this is the gold image that I want to use. There's a couple of things that we do automatically for you. So for people who like to create their gold images in a virtual environment, firstly, I applaud you. Really smart way to do it. It makes managing that gold image really, really easy to do. The downside to it is that you're usually doing it on 128 gig VHDX. And when you're deploying the image to a computer, there's this little tiny delta that you may have to overcome, which is the amount of space that the drive has versus the amount of space that the image is using. We automatically resize the image to fit the disk. So
Nice.
if you're pushing out your good old fashioned C drive, we're going to take the available disk space either over, like how much space you have extra, we're going to use that, or we're going to reduce the disk space that's available if you're putting it onto a smaller drive, as long as the image will fit.
Okay.
So any way you look at it, we're going to resize the image to fit the disk. We're going to do that for you. So that's one less operation you have to worry about afterwards, going into Disk Manager and extending the partition and doing all that stuff. Yeah, we don't want you to have to deal with that. It's all about techs making tools for techs, right?
Nice.
So we've done that. Now we're using a sysprep gold image. So we're going to use a sysprep answer file. And our sysprep answer file does 4 things. 3 of them are here. 1 of them you don't see. The one that you don't see is that we avoid having to go through that out-of-box experience. What region are you in? Is this your keyboard? Can we have the rights to your firstborn? Can we look at everything on your computer? Please, can we look at everything we're doing on your computer? Did we ask if we can look at everything you're doing on your computer? So we answer no to all of that stuff. No to Siri, or Cortana. We just say no to all of that, and we skip the out-of-box experience, and we just make life easy for you that way. Then the next thing we do is we give you an option to rename the computer. We give you an option to add a local administrator account, and we give you an option to join the computer to a domain. So the first thing we're going to tackle is the computer name. This is great if you're using a sequential system for numbering your computers. You know, if this happens to be lab 1B computer 1, great. We can do that. If you want to start it at 44, fantastic. We can start it at 44. It's automatically going to use the sequential numbering. So if you're doing 5 computers, it'll do 44, 45, 46, 47, 48.
Nice.
Okay. If the sequential numbering doesn't work, if you use an asset tag or if you use a username, for example, that's okay. We'll leave this on, but I'll show you how to edit that in a minute. Then we're going to create an admin account. So we will create the ITBOG admin, and we'll use a absolutely horrible password.
Password.
There, you got it. So we've created the ITBOG admin account, and then we're going to join the computer to the domain. And I'm going to use my domain credentials right over here. Now, of course, these are domain administrator credentials, and I mentioned earlier that the last thing we want to do is store those credentials in an XML file somewhere. So I mentioned to you that we do this all through using variables, right? So if we go onto Program Data Macrium Site Manager, and you scroll all the way down to the end, you will see an unattended template example. And if we edit that template, what you'll see is variables for all of this stuff. Okay. So if we go to the section that talks about joining the domain, you can see we're not even storing the domain name. The domain to join is there. The domain join password. So the admin password is a variable. The domain join username is a variable. All of these things make it simple and secure so that you're not storing that information in plain text. And more importantly, when you're pushing this information out, it's end-to-end encryption from the Site Manager SiteDeploy server to the target system. So none of that is exposed in plain text.
Awesome.
Okay. Once we're ready to go and we've decided on the operations that we're going to do, we say, yep, let's go ahead and get life rolling. Now, we mentioned earlier, you know, maybe the lab names don't work. So you know what? We'll make one computer called Scott, and then we'll call the other computer ITBOG. Okay. When we're finished, what we're going to do is look back at those couple of computers that we had sitting idling by, ready to accept images. And as you can see, I've done nothing to these computers. I've done everything from the console, and I've pushed the image out. We've negotiated the share, we've negotiated where the file is located, and then we've started pushing that image file directly to those computers. The only thing I had to do at the computer level was turn it on.
Yep.
And now at this point, It's going to go ahead and push those images out to the computers. But once those computers have their images, and it's not going to take very long to push that image out, just a couple of minutes, then the computer is going to go ahead and process the sysprep answer file that we've done. We'll reboot. We'll do a little bit more processing, reboot one more time, and we'll be at a login prompt. At that point, I can show you that the computers were renamed. I can show you that they're joined to the domain. And I can log into one of the computers with the ITBOG admin account and one of the computers with the domain account. And that is pretty much SiteDeploy in a nutshell.
That is awesome. Because look, if you were doing it the old-fashioned way, one at a time with a USB thumb drive, I mean, you would just be finished probably installing the OS. Then you'd have to do all of the drivers and updates and all of that stuff. So this is a huge time saver.
Yes, sir.
How hard is it to set one of these systems up in a lab like the PXE server?
Well, the Pixie server is really the easiest, probably the easiest part. I mean, all you do is you go into deployment media, you build your Pixie media, and then you turn on the TFTP server and the proxy DHCP. That's it. You just turn it on. It's done. It's already included. You're just turning it on at this point.
Okay, so it's not like a physical box that you have to have on your LAN.
Nope.
Okay.
We've included
You used to have to do it that way, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now it's built in more like a SaaS product.
Well, yeah, kind of. We've included the Pixie server with our software. It's your choice whether or not you want to use it. It's there if you want it. So it says that the deployment was successful. Let's go back to those two computers and they should be rebooting right now. So here's our first reboot. Yeah, it took all of a couple of minutes to deploy Windows 10 Enterprise to a couple of machines. Now, these are basic images. I don't have any additional software installed on it.
But it wouldn't have taken any more time if you'd had, 10 applications installed for your end users.
A little bit more time, but not significant. Not significant. So it'll say getting ready. You'll do another reboot, and then we'll be ready to go. So licensing. So we have two different licensing models for SiteDeploy. If you are a system builder, if you are somebody who builds computers and ships them off to customers, we love you. We know that this is a tool that you're going to want in your toolbox. And we have a system builder licensing for you that starts at 500 deployments annually. For most businesses, what we look at is we look at a per endpoint model instead of a per deployment model. It's the difference between the system builder and the commercial product. So on a per endpoint model, we're looking at your total number of endpoints that you're going to be deploying images to. It doesn't matter how many endpoints you have in your organization. If you're a small organization with a few hundred endpoints, or you're a large organization with a few thousand endpoints, we're really only concerned about the number of endpoints you're going to actually deploy an image to. So if you know that about 20 to 25% of your fleet will require reimaging every year, and if you have an evergreen policy that is 3 or 4 years for technology refresh, you can calculate how many endpoint licenses you're going to need relatively easily. In a 300 PC environment, if you're refreshing your technology every 4 years, that's 75 deployment licenses a year you're going to need for that. And you know that you're going to need probably somewhere between 60 and 75 deployment licenses to refresh existing hardware. So if that's the case, and you're looking at about 150 deployment licenses for the year. And at $20 US per deployment, per endpoint license, you're talking about a very minimal investment for the year for an unlimited number of deployments to those endpoints that you've already established as a target.
Gotcha. That makes
sense. So you can continue to redeploy to that same endpoint over and over. Right. So images have been deployed. As you can see, we can sign into the Macrium demo domain. We've renamed this one to Scott. We've renamed this computer to ITBOG. So you can see that all of that was done. So we can go ahead and log in with ITBOG admin and that super secret horrible password. Oop. Did I not choose the right IT? I may have fat fingered the ITBOG admin name, Scott. I apologize.
That's okay.
We'll find out what that local administrator account is in just a second. But here we'll go through our first boot for a user logging in, and you notice we haven't had the, hey, what region are you in? What keyboard are you using? And all those questions that you answer no to for Microsoft. So in just a moment, we'll be at a desktop.
Yeah, that one screen especially that has like 6 or 7 different sliders on it. I just go in. I don't even read them. I cut them all off.
Most people do. Most people do. You'd think that that'd be the default, but Microsoft wants as much information as possible, and that's okay. I mean, I get it. They're looking to better their products and stuff, but let somebody else give them the information.
That's right.
So this will be up in just a second. We'll be at our desktop. I'll go to the info screen and show you where we're at. Then everything should be wonderful.
Perfect.
You have any other questions about SiteDeploy?
Not yet. I'm sure I have plenty. I'll just have to hit you up on email later.
Well, we ought to get you using this, my friend.
I know. I'm excited, especially if I don't have to buy a Pixie server if it's built in.
It is built in. All right, so here we are. We'll go ahead and go to settings, system, about. So scott.macriumdemo.local. So we've joined the domain. Windows 10 Enterprise Evaluation. Settings. Counts.
Sweet processor too, man. Whew. 11th Gen i9, nice.
Other users, ITBOG admin. I guess I must have fat fingered something. Oh well, but there's the local administrator account.
Okay.
So everything that you need is right there. Local admin account, no out-of-box experience, computer rename joined to the domain. How much easier could we make this for you? We saved on average 9.5 minutes instead of having to go through the out-of-box experience, renaming your computer, rebooting, joining it to the domain, rebooting. It's about 9.5 minutes for somebody who's relatively familiar with going through that process. If you were doing 100 PC deployment, that adds up to just under 2 days, 15.7 hours of saved tech time on 100 PC deployment. Now, if you're a IT business owner, this is a tool in your pocket. You're still going to charge your customers whatever you're going to charge them to do their setups. But if it means it costs you less money overall, then it's a win for you and it's more money in your pocket.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
There you have it. This is our brand new SiteDeploy product available now.
I like that. It was just released yesterday, so it's hot off the presses.
You betcha. You can head on over to our macrium.com webpage, look for our technicians product and go down. You'll find SiteDeploy right there. You can download a trial of it. You can give it a whirl. We'll give you a 5 endpoint license for 30 days that you can try out. And we hope you like it. If you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and kill the share here and switch my camera off. This is my contact info right here in this QR code. So I'm going to leave this up here for a minute.
Wonderful, because I was going to ask you how, if people are interested in watching it, how can they get in touch with you and get the process started to, even get the trial going? So just go ahead and scan that QR code or reach out to me or reach out to Ari and I'll get you in touch with Ari.
You bet. Any of the methods above?
That works. Awesome.
Happy to work with y'all. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure. I can't wait to demo the next exciting thing y'all have going. Y'all are always releasing stuff, which is great. I love that about companies. You know, you're not just a stagnant company. You're always coming up with new things. So that's
Yes, sir.
perfect.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ari. I appreciate the wonderful demo. And if anybody has any questions, just reach out to us, and we'll do our best to get them answered. So thanks so much, Ari. Enjoy the
Thanks,
rest of your
Scott.
day. Bye-bye.